Alrighty, greetings and salutations everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff and welcome to our Saturday afternoon live stream for week 10 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Just moments ago, prior to this live stream, starting, we got confirmation via Twitter from a lot of official sources that Dak Prescott is in fact having season-ending surgery, which again, for those of you who have asked me over the course of this entire week in regards to trading CeeDee Lamb, I said if you can go ahead and potentially move him, that's the way we go about it. Of course, we also heard that there are rumors regarding guys like Chris Olave most likely being placed on the injured reserve sooner rather than later. And then we also have the conversation of the thumbnail of today's overall live stream, Tyreek Hill, a player that earlier today did not participate in practice, even though he plays on Monday, which again gives him another day to potentially recover and be prepared. We're going to have a lot of conversations regarding the potential of these players because, again, if you don't have a pivoting option for Tyreek Hill and he doesn't play on Monday, are you going to pick up and play OBJ? I don't think that's a viable enough potential pivot in that circumstance. So many of us, we're going to be tested. Again, every week continues to get more and more difficult. More and more significant injuries take place. And of course, the bye-apocalypse is upon us with 4 teams on bye this week. So it's definitely not an easy transition into trying to pick up a win in week 10. Nonetheless, either way, I'm trying to help. So that's why I'm here. We're answering any and all fantasy football questions. Whether you guys send in a question via Super Chat or via the live chat, make sure you include your scoring format, whether that is standard, half PPR, full PPR. The more context you provide in regards to your current search situation, the easier it'll be for me to answer the question. Outside of that, I do appreciate y'all coming through. If you haven't yet already, click the like button and let's get into answering questions, shall we? So the first question of the day via Super comes in from Eric, who says, "Hey Andrew, in a full PPR, I get 1 point per receiving yard and 5 point per rushing yard, which applies to quarterbacks, Kyler or Jared Goff. I'd rather play Kyler this week." So you had sent this in a while back, Eric. So I went and I did a little bit of digging into the overall rushing upside of Kyler Murray thus far this season. Outside of the 2 blowout games in which they've lost against Washington and Green Bay, the only other game in which he didn't have a high rushing total was against Miami. In that game, they were down a pretty considerable amount until that safety happened midway through the third quarter. But every other game, he's been 40 or more rushing yards. So under the assumption this is going to be a close game, very similar to the other games in which he's participated in, gets himself the rushing upside. Again, last week, CJ Stroud ran for over 50 scramble yards. So under the assumption he gets, let's say, his normal 40 rushing yards minimum, that's an additional 8 points for you, which, yes, I would be willing to start Kyler very comfortably over Jared Goff in that instance. Eric, thank you very much for the question. All right, moving on to Drew Gonzalez, who sends in a question. Thank you, Drew. Drew says in a full PPR, Josh Downs or Kareem Hunt? That is a very good question. So considering the absence of Michael Pittman Jr., it does make the potential of Josh Downs a little bit more appealing. That being said, I think it's very difficult not to start Kareem Hunt. Like the last 4 games, over 22 total touches every game, has scored a touchdown every game minimum. I feel like it's almost a guarantee that you're going to get like 15 plus points with Kareem Hunt at a base minimum. That being said, it would be very easy for Josh Downs to eclipse that. All he needs is actually, it's not very easy to get 7 catches for 70 yards. Actually, that's a pretty good day at a base minimum. But I think if it's my choice, let's go see where I have them ranked in a full PPR. I'm going to assume that I have Josh Downs slightly ranked higher in a full PPR, but I could be mistaken. Let's go ahead. Let's see where that sits. Okay. So funny enough, as it currently stands, I have Josh Downs 1 spot behind a Kareem Hunt, 35 versus 36 overall in my rankings. So yeah, they're very close in terms of ranking. Kareem Hunt literally 1 spot ahead of him as it currently stands. So that's the direction I'm going to continue to go in. As for your next question, Drew, you had said, would you play either one over Tyreek Hill with injury news as well? Yeah, look. So here's the consideration that we have to make. If you don't have a pivoting option for the Monday night game, in regards to the Rams taking on the Miami Dolphins, and Tyreek Hill is, again, questionable, and we don't know whether or not he is going to play. There's a chance that he may not. Again, not practicing is not a good sign. Therefore, I would probably just play both of these options and just go with the safety. Because if you go to Monday night and you have to theoretically swap out Tyreek Hill and play Demarcus Robinson, or maybe you don't even have Demarcus Robinson. You have to even go for a lesser option than that, OBJ Tutu Atwell. At that point, I think it's far too risky. And I'd rather just play Josh Downs and Kareem Hunt and take the production that they're going to provide within the upcoming performance. Now, that's again, if you don't have a pivoting option. Let's say, for example, you have Tyreek and Waddle. You can only play one. At that point, okay, you can go into Monday night very confident that you can pivot and or keep. Young Motivated sends in a question. Says, with Dak's injury, how will Dak's injury impact CeeDee Lamb? Yeah, look, CeeDee Lamb's overall upside is limited. And his overall longevity for the remainder of the season is in question. Let me explain to you why, right? So when you have Cooper Rush and or Trey Lance playing quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, who knows whether or not Cooper Rush is going to be able to maintain this job rest of season? Time will tell, obviously, but when you have Cooper Rush there, you're going to get a lesser overall option of CeeDee Lamb because the quarterback play is lesser. Therefore, the offense as a whole, less opportunities, less touchdown drives, etc. So CeeDee Lamb is going to be a lesser option in general. We've seen that in seasons past when Cooper Rush has started for this team. CD is just not the same. Target share, overall utilization, and touchdown upside not as consistent. So that alone definitely hurts him. But then on top of it, if the Dallas Cowboys continue to trend to losing games, who's to say that they don't shut down CeeDee Lamb at the end of the season? All he needs is one, moderate injury of any sort, and they'll just shut him down. Because at this point, they're not trying to make the playoffs. They're trying to secure a high pick within the 2025 NFL draft, based on the fact that, of course, they don't have Dak Prescott, who is their franchise quarterback, and would be the only reason that they would even get to the playoffs. With all the injuries that they have gone ahead and, collected on defense, Michael Parsons has been on the shelf for, 3 weeks now? So is DeMarcus Lawrence. Their defense is banged up. Their offense is banged up. And quite frankly, it wouldn't be surprising if CeeDee Lamb, with his shoulder, in a couple weeks here, is like, all right, I'm calling it. That could easily occur. We've seen it in the past. Now, as for your next question, full PPR start one, Ladd McConkey, Juwan Jennings, or BTJ? Very good question. Out of those available 3 options, I'd probably feel most comfortable rolling with Ladd McConkey, to be honest. Then Juwan Jennings, then BTJ. I'm moving BTJ down the list more and more as the week progresses. I don't know if I can trust Mac Jones outright in that scenario. I'm still going to have BTJ in my top 36 wide receiver rankings by tomorrow when we live stream tomorrow morning. But in regards to those 3 available, I'd probably go Ladd, Juwan, and then I'd follow it up with BTJ last. Eric Nixon sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, Pearsall or Tolbert? I'd rather play Tolbert, mainly because I don't know the overall utilization that Pearsall will see in the return of Juwan Jennings. It could be an instance in which they go ahead and split it 50-50. It could be an instance in which is an 80-20 split. I mean, you never know. There may be a situation in which they come out in 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, and Pearsall plays the entire game. We have no clue what exactly Shanahan wants to utilize, but what we do know is that based on his tendencies over the course of this season, seasons past, he always wants to utilize 2 backs with the full back in the conversation. Sometimes a lot of 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. So having multiple receivers on the field, specifically 3 wide receivers on the field, is a very rare instance. So he's going to definitely have to fight for snaps while competing with guys like Debo and Juwan Jennings, who obviously have more veteranship within the offense. So I'll lean towards Tolbert, especially considering Brandon Cooks has not returned yet. Matt sends in a question. Says, bench 1 in a full PPR. Okay, we have London, who's limited, Nakua or Lamb. If London is active tomorrow, he will be in my lineup, taking on the New Orleans Saints. That secondary is battered and is in complete shambles. He will play alongside Nakua, and Lamb would take the bench. In the event that, of course, London is not available tomorrow, that's a pregame warm-ups, he shows up, says his hip's not feeling great, doesn't want to go, then at that point, the decision is made for you. But otherwise, if he's active, he's in my lineup. Thank you. RM Laughlin, says, I have Olave. Would you drop Keenan Allen, Mason, or Guerendo for Pearsall, or stay put? Would I drop any of those 3 for Pearsall? Look, at this point, the only reason you would have Mason or Guerendo on your team, both of them, is if you have Christian McCaffrey. And even then, I don't think you need to have both on roster. So considering I'm looking at your team, you said you have Nico, Dell, Waddle, Allen, Bijan, Swift, Tracy, Mason, and obviously Guerendo and Keenan Allen. So, as a whole, RM, I'm probably going to lean towards the idea that, I don't mind the idea of picking up Pearsall just in case. Again, the splits within that San Francisco 49ers offense is far more, I don't know. I think the overall exposure to opportunity is going to be little in terms of targets, but as long as he plays more and more within the offense, there will be at least opportunities in comparison to Guerendo or Mason, who, again, are going to require an injury in order for them to play. So for right now, I'm willing to drop both of them, to be honest, considering you don't have Christian McCaffrey. Or, again, at this point, to play it safe, you just wait a week, see what happens with McCaffrey, see what kind of split he gets in the backfield. If nothing arises, then at this point, this time next week, you can drop them both and press on getting other options. But, no, Keenan Allen's also to stay on the team. Young Motivated sends in a follow-up. Says, full PPR, CeeDee Lamb or J.K. Dobbins? For this week, let me see where I have them ranked. As of right now, I do have CeeDee Lamb ahead of J.K. Dobbins this week. Thank you. Austin sends in a question. Says, what's the deal with Nico Collins? It looks like he's trending towards playing in week 11. Obviously, they didn't let him practice all week long. Additionally, again, he's still coming off of the hamstring injury, so they didn't want to go ahead and force him back into the overall mix. Again, this team as a whole requires his services greatly, but they're also not willing to put him in any sort of like kind of future risk of re-injury, especially considering he's had a month off. So they might as well just give him another week, make sure he's 110% before having him return. So yeah, likelihood is you won't see him until next week. T. Jones sends in a question. Thank you, T. T says PPR, D-Hop, Leggett, Waddle, Sutton, Kincaid, pick 3. Okay, I think this is relatively... Okay, I was going to say it's relatively easy, but it's not. So D-Hop and Sutton, I believe, are just auto plays. Waddle and Kincaid are the other two that I'm kind of considering. Waddle will be a significantly better play in the absence of Tyreek Hill, but we don't know whether or not Tyreek Hill is going to be inactive. So that there could be a potential in which you play Kincaid. This is the way that I approach it, T. Jones. By tomorrow, if we get an indication that Amari Cooper is not playing against the Indianapolis Colts, at that point I would fire up Kincaid, D-Hop, and Sutton. In the event in which Amari Cooper is active, at that point I would play D-Hop, Waddle, and Sutton. Thank you. Zolbu sends in a question, says, hi Andrew. Singletary or Tyler Algier full PPR? Singletary's got a really solid matchup going up against the Carolina Panthers in Munich tomorrow, but the only issue that I have is that his overall opportunity share is just not going to be enough. Like, what did he have? 7 rushing attempts last week for like 20-something yards? Like, even against the Carolina Panthers, let's say, for example, he's to average like, I don't know, 8 yards per carry. No, not 8 yards per carry. 4 or 5 yards per carry. On 7 attempts, he's only going to get like 3.5, maybe 4 fantasy points. If he doesn't get any receiving utilization, he would require a touchdown upside. Now, in comparison, Tyler Algier, last time he took on Atlanta, was given a pretty good share of opportunity on the ground through the air. Of course, they're not afraid to give him opportunities near the goal line, specifically stealing a touchdown last week. So Algier would be the preferred of the two as of right now. Thank you. Bathroom Cake sends in a question, says, would you trade Lamb for Debo? I absolutely would, yeah. Listen, why would I want to associate my wide receiver with Cooper Rush or Trey Lance when I can associate it with Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers offense? Debo Samuel, when healthy, is an incredible fantasy option, and I think is a significantly better one for the remainder of the season in this instance. So yeah, for sure. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Kid Wits. Let's see here. I gotta find it in the live chat. All right, I see the question. It says, in a full PPR, trade BTJ and Addison for Shakir and Pacheco. Okay, I wanted Cooper instead of Shakir, but my league mate wouldn't budge because he thinks Addison is cheeks. Okay, I understand. So in the long run, okay, so this is what you need to understand first and foremost. Pacheco probably won't return until week 11 or week 12. And I'm going to probably assume that it's going to be more of a week 12 return because that's the final week of, let's see here. So this is week 11. That's this is week 10, this is week 11, this is week 12. Yeah. So I'm going to assume that he doesn't return until week 12. That's my assumption. So that would be the last week of November, like the 24th and beyond. So that's Sunday. If you can survive without, any sort of depth at that position, or giving away BTJ and Addison in exchange for Pacheco, and you can wait till week 12, 13, and then get the full workload of kind of Pacheco from weeks 14 and beyond, I would take the deal. Because I do believe that Shakir, again, in a full PPR, has a solidified position within this offense. Regardless, as long as he is healthy, he is going to be consistent. And then Pacheco's overall upside in his return, I mean, we have seen what Kareem Hunt is capable of doing. And we all know at this current moment in time, a healthy Pacheco is a significantly better running back than Kareem Hunt in every sort of metric. So, especially within the receiving game, which of course has not been present in the overall substance of what Kareem Hunt has presented over the course of this season. So, yeah, I'll take that deal for sure. Thank you for the question. All right, let's see here. Meadow of Hay sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR, sit 1, Ridley, Waddle, Pitts. If no London, understood. So if I'm sitting one out of this group, I'm sitting Ridley. I have no interest in playing a wide receiver that is associated with Will Levis. I was going to say Trevor Lawrence. No, Will Levis, other AFC South quarterback. Will Levis, in my opinion, would have to prove to me that he's going to heavily utilize Ridley. Because in comparison to what we've seen earlier this season when Levis has been active, very seldom have we seen good games between him and Ridley. Therefore, I don't think the connection is strong enough. I'd rather they had thrown out Mason Rudolph into that conversation, but obviously they're not willing to do so. So as of right now, I'm probably just going to play Pitts and Waddle in that scenario. Thank you. All right, Demond Smith sends in a question. Thank you very much, sir. So in a full PPR, Tua or Mahomes? As of right now, considering the kind of uncertainty of what Tyreek Hill's status currently remains, I think Mahomes is probably the play. Even though we don't love the idea of playing him up against the Denver Broncos defense, what really is going to be the deciding factor is once the Chiefs offense can slow down with Bo Nix and Sean Payton are going to potentially cook up, it's just going to expose that defense to more and more potential threat from what Patrick Mahomes in this offense typically kind of produce. So I'm probably going to lean in the direction, as I did earlier this week in my quarterback tight end rankings, in the direction of Mahomes. And again, Tua, again, continues to kind of lower in my overall mind in terms of his overall potential for, upside, considering the sketchiness of Tyreek Hill and the uncertainty there. Now, as for your next question, it says, and which one of these do I start? Alec Pierce, Pop Douglas, or Xavier Worthy? Really good question. So out of those available options, I don't like the idea of playing receivers that predominantly play on the outside against the Bills. That is something that let's go see here. I'm actually curious if I can actually give a kind of tangible understanding of this. So when I look at wide receivers against the Bills as of late, so receivers on the outside, Tyreek Hill had 80 yards last week, okay? But that's it. 4 catches for 80, nothing else. And that's Tyreek Hill, one of the best receivers in the league. Then the week prior, okay, we had Tyler Lockett go for 1 catch for 9 yards. The week prior, Calvin Ridley, 3 for 42. Let's see here. Garrett Wilson, which again was probably the best receiver performance against the Bills all season, 8 for 107 and a touchdown. Nico Collins, 2 for 78 before getting injured. Outside of that, I go back to BTJ, 5 for 48. Tyreek Hill, 3 for 24. Marvin Harrison, 1 for 4 yards. Zay Flowers, 1 for 10 yards. Again, there haven't been very many elite producing weeks against this secondary, and it's not by accident, it's by design. This defense and this secondary has played incredibly well. So I don't really trust Alec Pierce unless he makes a huge play over the top of the defense. So as of right now, in a full PPR, I'm probably going to lean towards playing Pop Douglas. Thank you. Dark Blood sends in a question. It says, Johnston, Eckler, or BTJ in the flex. I prefer to play Eckler out of the group. Yeah, out of those three, regardless of scoring format, half PPR, full PPR, standard, it doesn't matter. Across the board, I prefer Eckler. Thank you for the question, Dark Blood. We had Adam Thompson who sends in a question. Thank you, Adam. Adam says, in a 2 running back, 1 flex league, and a half PPR, we have JT, Kyron, Hunt, and Tracy. Okay. So, Kyron has to play. That is a given. Next to him, I probably, legitimately, I'm not even joking, I think I would play Hunt and Tracy, and I'd bench JT. I don't know if I can confidently play him within this current, the current standing of this offense. So between the 4, I think JT's probably the lowest ranked, and you'll see that by tomorrow morning's rankings. Yeah, even though it is supposed to be a solid matchup in terms of running the ball, if Flacco cannot effectively move the ball through the air because of how great the secondary is for the Buffalo Bills, and his really only viable receiving option is Josh Downs, the offense as a whole is going to crumble. And again, this pass rush is eventually going to get after him. They're getting healthier as the weeks have progressed. So I'm just going to lean towards avoiding any sort of risk with JT. I'll just take Kyron, Hunt, and Tracy there. Jay Steele sends in a question. Says, pick 2. Mooney, McConkey, Harrison. All right, out of those 3 options, I'm playing Mooney and I'm playing McConkey. Those are my 2 preferred. Thank you. Chris Allin sends in a question. Says, in a PPR, start 1 wide receiver and 1 running back. And 1 wide receiver, 2 running backs, and 1 flex. Okay, you have Sutton, you have Jefferson, Addison, Montgomery, Hunt, Bigsby, Etienne, and Najee Harris. Cool. So of those available options, the 1 wide receiver, obviously, as you know, is Justin Jefferson. The 2 running backs that I would play would be Kareem Hunt and David Montgomery. And the 1 flex that I would play in this circumstance is it's either Sutton or it's Najee Harris. Where do I have them ranked accordingly? Let's see here. I was going to think to myself that it's probably Sutton, but maybe I'm smarter than that. Let's see here. Where did I have on Thursday? Yeah, I had Najee Harris ahead of him. So that's what we'll go. So we'll go Jefferson, Montgomery, Hunt, and Najee Harris. Now, for your next question, Chris Allin, Ferguson or Taysom Hill at tight end this week, I'm going to take Taysom Hill there. Thank you. Michael Barton sends in a question. Thank you, Michael. Says, should I trade Tyreek Hill and get Evans? I have Terry and Adams. My running backs are Henry, Gibbs, and Taylor, PPR. I don't know if it's that much. Okay, well, here's the thing. By trading for Evans, you're basically just saying, I just want a solid wide receiver from weeks 12 and beyond, because we're not going to see Mike Evans next week because they're going on bye, and he'll return hopefully by week 12. But let's say, for example, he doesn't even return in week 12. Let's say he only returns in week 13. Tyreek Hill's already passed his bye week. So really, you would be making this move in the event in which you're just trying to set up for the fantasy playoffs, which, in my opinion, I don't know if I'm willing to make that move. I think you'd probably need the services of Tyreek Hill in the next couple weeks here in order to help you kind of pick up victories, especially with Terry McLaurin eventually seeing a bye week upcoming here. Same thing with Derrick Henry. You're going to be missing a couple players in these instances. The Jets, if I'm not mistaken, let's see here. What does the Jets schedule look like in terms of their bye week? Isn't it upcoming? Yeah, they have a week 12 bye. So like by giving away Tyreek Hill and getting a player that is injured right now, I think it does you a disservice. Now, again, that's under the assumption that we have a even healthy Tyreek Hill, which I don't know. Again, that is very much so speculatory and up in the air. But I would assume that he's going to be healthier at least week 11, 12 and be active for you, where you probably won't have Evans in those instances, which I think, again, could hurt you in the long run. But you'd have to tell me if you've got a really strong record, you're 8-1 or something of that exchange, and you're just looking towards the playoffs, and I don't mind the overall idea. I could see where, I could see the idea and as to why he would do it, and I could actually justify making that move. Bad Sport sends in a question, says PPR Jennings, Waddle, or BTJ with questionable quarterbacks. Okay, so as of right now, between those three options, the way that I would rank it would go Waddle 1, Jennings 2, BTJ 3. That's the way that I would approach it. Bad Sport, thank you. Hanwan sends in a question, says, I'm thinking about the playoffs and rest of season, non-PPR. I traded JK, JMO, Pearsall, Chase, Rush for Evans, Jacobs, Aaron Jones, Debo, Ridley, Darnold. What do you think? Okay, that's a huge haul of players. So really, if I look at this as a whole, like the first team, right? J.K. Dobbins and Chase are the only valuable options that I see. While on the other side, there's Evans, Jacobs, Aaron Jones, Debo, and Darnold. So yeah, I think that you'd probably, you got the better side of this deal entirely. So congratulations, Hanwan. Well done. Hank Hennig sends in a question, says, greetings, Andrew. Dealing with a tough decision in a full PPR. Would you start Tracy, Mooney, or Downs? That's a great question. I got to pick two. Okay, so between those available options, the way that I'm going to approach it is I'm for sure going to play Tracy tomorrow morning. Or so you pretty much go into tonight having started Tracy because he's going to start his game tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. PST. Or if you live on the East Coast, 9:30 a.m. Early morning game, set and ready to go. Tracy would be the start in that scenario. Now, the only reason that I would potentially play Mooney over Downs is if, in fact, London is inactive. If, in fact, he is, then I would play Mooney there. Otherwise, I'm going to lean towards Downs. Thank you. As for your next question, also Herbert or Daniel Jones. Thanks. Yeah, I'd also play at this point Daniel Jones. More rushing upside. Additionally, I think just looking at the home and away splits, I think it's a legitimate thing. For some reason, when he plays at home, there is a mental block for some reason. He almost has the yips when he gets to home and plays in MetLife. So I'll lean towards Daniel Jones there, coming off a really solid performance and now has to take on the Carolina Panthers. Really, it has just been a cakewalk for every quarterback over the course of the season. Like I know Derek Carr didn't look all too great, but he didn't have Olave anyway, and he still threw for 236 and a touchdown. Otherwise, the recent performances for quarterbacks against the Carolina Panthers, Bo Nix had 4 touchdowns, 284 yards. Marcus Mariota went for 205 yards on an 80% passing completion percentage and 2 touchdowns. So like Marcus Mariota, just to give you a base sense, if we think that Daniel Jones and Marcus Mariota are similarly talented players, Marcus Mariota threw for 205, 2 touchdowns, 34 rushing yards. Like I'd imagine we're in a pretty good spot here to succeed, especially when we have guys like, even Caleb Williams throwing for 302 touchdowns against Carolina and 34 rushing yards. So yeah, Daniel Jones is the preferred. That defense is just not, efficient enough to be able to stop anybody, much less Daniel Jones at the moment. All right, let's see here. We had OJ Running send in a question. Thank you, OJ. It says, Andrew the man, drop Brooks for Algier rest of season. If you have Bijan Robinson, sure. Otherwise, no. That's the way that I would kind of mentally go through that maze of sorts. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in for JRM. SR. JRM Senior, maybe. It says, I need one wide receiver. Who should I trade for? My wide receivers are JSN, Marvin Harrison, and Chris Olave and Cedric Tillman. Yeah, so you need to trade away Chris Olave because, again, Chris Olave is probably going to be placed on the injured reserve. If you could do so before he gets placed on the IR and maybe swindle someone in your league, I know that's pretty bad manners, but again, you could probably take advantage of someone in your league that is lesser, informed than you at the moment. But yeah, you need to move Chris Olave. As to what you get in return, it does not matter because, again, if you're going to miss him for the next 4 weeks, that could very much jeopardize what you potentially go in as a playoff seed as. You could be the number 8 seed. You may completely outright miss the playoffs if you don't have Olave in his overall services. So as of right now, I'm just going after wider. I'd go after Jacoby Myers. I mean, he's on a bye week, but hey, at this point, Romeo Dobbs is another great option, I think. Let me just think of other potential options that went on bye. You already have Tillman. You already have, so you need a wide receiver for this week, perhaps, because you have JSN and Tillman that are out. So you need a wide receiver for this week. If we're looking for somebody that is kind of low key, that may not cost you an arm and a leg in this scenario, you could go after Xavier Legette. You could go after Jameson Williams. You could go after Rome Odunze. What else could we theoretically go after that could at least give you a little bit of boost of this week? Calvin Ridley could be a ventured path, but that may not be as viable considering, again, he's played well as of late. DJ Moore could be a viable path. Those are the kind of names that I'm going to throw out. Lad McConkey's of the world. Everything else that I can think of, or at least I'm looking at my rankings list, I think it may be a little bit too difficult to get them in exchange. Maybe could go after, that would be it though, for now. Thank you. All right, let's see here. OJ Running had a follow-up. Says Javonte Williams or Jawan Jennings in the flex spot PPR. I'd rather play Jawan Jennings. Thank you. Easy E sends in a question. Says, in a standard super flex 3 wide receiver league, I have quarterback Daniels, Murray, Jones with Knicks as well. Okay. Wide receivers are CD, Neighbors, Cup, Smith, and Evans. Okay. And then you have Achane, Tracy, Montgomery, McBride, Moody, Vikings defense, switch Jones for Murray. Am I switching Daniel Jones in for Kyler Murray? Probably not. I think Kyler Murray is, again, a solid play, and so is Daniel Jones. If you prefer him over him, if you prefer Daniel Jones over Kyler Murray, I don't have an issue with it. I have them ranked back-to-back, so their overall projection based on my model, relatively close enough to where I could justify playing one over the other. I have that decision in my own primary league. I'm playing Kyler tomorrow. OJ Running says, rest of season PPR, Njoku or Gesicki? I'd rather have Njoku, and it's not even remotely close. Hanwan sends in a question, says, should I trade Tyreek for Neighbors? I don't mind that at all. I don't mind that at all. Again, understand that, again, Neighbors is going to go on a bye week eventually here, though. Let's see here. We had a question from Arshveer. Yes. Atwall says, start 3, Thomas, Smith, Adams, Shakir, Hopkins. Yeah, so Devontae Adams has to play. I think DeAndre Hopkins probably also has to play. And then the third option, in the event that Amari Cooper's inactive, I play Shakir. Otherwise, I'm playing Devontae Smith. Thank you. Hector Hernandez says, in a half PPR rest of the season, DeMarcus Robinson or Worthy? I'd rather have DeMarcus Robinson as of right now. Josh Holt sends in a question, says, PPR, if Tyreek is out, bench BTJ and start Waddle? Okay, here's the issue. You won't know whether or not Tyreek Hill is out until Monday night. He doesn't play till Monday. So you are going to probably have to, you're going to just have to play Waddle because I prefer to play Waddle anyway. But yeah, that's the overall understanding. If anybody has Tyreek Hill, understand he plays on Monday, and you won't know his overall designation and or his status until Monday afternoon. All right, we had a question that came in from LDMND who says, PPR, trade Brees and Marvin Harrison for Dobbins and Neighbors. Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. I'm cool with that trade. That works for me. Thank you. Justin B sends in a question. Says, trading Swift and Addison for Dobbins and JSN. Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, I'll take the Dobbins JSN side of that very happily. Thank you. Combat Cash Club sends in a question. Says, in a 12-team PPR, we have Kenneth Walker on a bye. Start 1 RB2 between ETN and Bigsby. I'd probably play ETN there in a full PPR. I think he'd get a lot more potential opportunity within the receiving game to be relevant in those circumstances in comparison to Bigsby, who, again, is going to desperately need a rushing touchdown. And against Minnesota, that is a long shot to potentially occur. All right, Bums sends in a question. It says, should I trade James Conner for Aaron Jones? Conner versus the Panthers and Rams in fantasy playoffs. Jones versus Seattle and Green Bay. Who's better in your opinion? As of right now, I would rather have James Conner in the fantasy playoffs. The 3 games in which he takes on in the fantasy playoffs, weeks 15, 16, 17, are as good as it gets. I mean, honestly, I kind of want to have all Cardinals throughout the fantasy playoffs. But yeah, when you take on New England week 15, which is the second best matchup at the running back position, then you take on week 16 Carolina Panthers, the best matchup at the running back position. Then you take on the Rams, which again, earlier this season, Connor ran for 122 and even fumbled the ball into the end zone in that game. So could have went for over 25 fantasy points anyway. It's a top 10 matchup in itself. Yeah, that's the player that I would rather have in that instance if I had to choose between Connor and Aaron Jones rest of the season. Now, right, it's not to say that Aaron Jones is not a great play. He certainly is. And I think rest of the season, he is definitely going to demonstrate that. But throughout that specific spectrum of time, that would be the preferred running back that I would like to have. Thank you. All right, again, we've been here for about, 30 minutes. We're going to be here for a long more. Again, for those of you who are joining us, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well on this wonderful Saturday for week 10 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Again, we're answering questions. If you guys are going to send in a question, whether it is in the live chat or super chat, make sure you include your scoring format. That is very much so necessary. If you don't include it, I'm just going to try to answer it in a half PPR, meeting everyone in the middle, whether you do play standard, full PPR, half meets it in the middle just in case. Because again, if I don't have that context, it would be very difficult to answer that. Now, Schnabel in the chat says, Brandon Aubrey rest of season or Cameron Dicker? I'd rather have Cameron Dicker. Cameron Dicker's been pretty good in fantasy too, right? There was a streak of games there. It was like a month where he was putting up like 12 plus points. He could still be on that streak. Let's see here. Where is he at? Cameron Dicker, 12, 21, 9. Yeah, he was pretty strong there. I think going forward, I'm still going to lean in the direction of Cameron Dicker as of right now. Again, the offense, the entire offense, unfortunately, the entire offense of the Dallas Cowboys, including the kicking game, is going to take a huge hit here in the absence of Dak Prescott. That is for certain. Let's see here. Revan sends in a question. Revan JJ says, in a PPR, McBride or Otten? I'd much rather play Otten. Again, Otten has had 10 plus targets each of the last 3 games, and he has been a ridiculous machine. The 49ers aren't particularly great at stopping opposing tight ends. Now, again, Otten is the primary target, so it wouldn't surprise me if they double cover him the entire day. But, again, even in those instances, you can't double cover a tight end for the entire day. There are going to be opportunities in which he's going to find himself open, and Baker Mayfield continues to look in his direction between the 20s and inside the red zone. So, yeah, Otten is the preferred. Now, as for your next question, Dobbins or Chuba Hubbard, I'm going to lean towards Dobbins in the event in which we get a confirmation tomorrow morning that Jonathan Brooks is inactive. Then at that point, I would play Hubbard. Now, again, the only reason I say that is because even though Jonathan Brooks has practiced fully each of the last 2 full weeks, he is still given the questionable tag for tomorrow morning. That means that there's a possibility that he does not play in tomorrow's game in Germany. Therefore, in his absence, I would rather have Chuba Hubbard. Otherwise, if he's active, I'll just take Dobbins there and not really, mess with the overall risk. Thank you. Cloud sends in a question. It says, in a 10-team full PPR, we have Kyron, Mixon, Tracy, Jonathan Brooks, and Wilson. BTJ, Hopkins with Otten and Jaden Daniels. Okay, pretty strong looking team across the board. Do I trade for another wide receiver or not? I mean, looking at your wide receiver core, right? Garrett Wilson, BTJ, Hopkins. You probably need another one, especially considering Wilson has an upcoming bye and BTJ has an upcoming bye. So yeah, it'd probably be in your best interest just in case for injury purposes, the risk of BTJ not having Trevor Lawrence for a couple weeks here. It'd probably be in your best interest to potentially trade for another running back. Now, as to how you accomplish that, I'm not moving Otten. I'm not moving Jaden Daniels. I'm not moving Kyron. I'm not moving Mixon. So it would have to be done potentially via wide receiver. Maybe you're giving away BTJ and bringing back another wide receiver who's already passed their bye week and has a pretty good strength of schedule upcoming here. So that would be my initial thought, because I'm not really interested in trading Tracy either, because when I look at the upcoming schedule, Houston's has a bye week up ahead, and Tracy's got a really strong upcoming opportunity share in which he could even be your flexible option every week. So yeah, unless you're moving BTJ or Hopkins in order to get maybe a 2 for 2 or something of that exchange, maybe 2 for 3, you either hold or you move BTJ straight up for another wide receiver. Eric sends in a follow-up question. Eric says, drop Deontay Johnson, Leggett, Douglas on the waivers. Yeah, I don't mind dropping Deontay Johnson in order to pick up Xavier Leggett. That sounds good to me. Again, he's the number 1 of his team, so going forward, going to be very valuable. Let's see here. Nostradamus sends in the question. Says, full PPR flex spot BTJ, DJ Moore, or Rashad White. Thank you. Whew. This is not an easy question to answer in any circumstance. So considering the quarterback play from both, okay, and then we have Rashad White, who really doesn't get much opportunity out of the backfield. If he scores a touchdown, we're lucky. Honestly, out of these 3 options, I think I'm finding myself playing DJ Moore this week. It'd probably go DJ Moore 1, BTJ 2, and Rashad White 3. Thank you. Mr. Bojangles says, in a full PPR, start 1, Tyreek Hill, BTJ, or Ladd McConkey. So again, considering we don't know whether or not Tyreek Hill is going to play until Monday night, because that is when they play against the Los Angeles Rams in LA. because we don't have a clear indication as to whether or not he's going to play until then, you either have to play Ladd McConkey tomorrow or risk it and play Tyreek Hill. In the event, if he does not play, you would have to have a pivoting option in order to play ahead of him. So somebody on the Rams or the Dolphins in which you'd feel comfortable enough starting in his absence. Now, if we get any sort of indication later tonight or tomorrow in which they say that, hey, they're pretty optimistic that he's going to play, then we'd fire him up. But in the event in which he is not available, you have to just start Ladd and just kind of avoid any sort of risk, because getting a 0-point player in that circumstance could really hurt you. Nathan Salazar sends in a question and says, help, full PPR. Start 2. We have Dell, Tyreek Hill, BTJ, Jennings. Okay, also, what quarterback should I start? Goff, Wilson, or Stafford? Okay, between those available quarterbacks, I'm playing Stafford. As for your wide receivers there, because Nico Collins is out for another consecutive week, Tank Dell is the highest ranked player of the group. Now, as for Tyreek Hill, BTJ, and Juwan Jennings, again, it's a matter of what kind of pivoting options you have available and how risky you are willing to play this. If it's my team, Nathan, I'm probably rolling with Dell and trying to find a pivoting option for Tyreek Hill in the event that I'm trying to play him. Because I look at Jennings and I look at BTJ and I think to myself, yes, they could both easily play well, but what Tyreek Hill could potentially present to me is so much more valuable that I'm willing to take that risk, and I'm willing to go into Monday night with a pivoting option, whether it is a Ram and or potential. Maybe you could just throw him in the flex. It could be like a pivoting option could be Raheem Mostert to him, something of that exchange, but or a tight end. It could be Jonnu Smith. So at the moment, yes, I want to play Dell and Tyreek Hill. And if you have the available pivoting option, go for it. Otherwise, you have to play Jennings instead of Tyreek. Benny G sends in a question. Says, good day, Goat. Thank you, Benny. Says, rest of season, Bijan or Kamara? I'd rather have Bijan rest of season. Thank you. Josh Holt sends in a question. Says, if Nico plays, start Stroud, Tua, or Stafford at quarterback. In the event that Nico Collins does play tomorrow, which I think is a very much so long shot, I am still going to play Stafford. Now, in the event that Stroud is playing with Nico, I would play him ahead of Tua, but again, the order would be it would be Stafford, Stroud, Tua in that order. Again, in the event that Nico plays, I still would play Stafford ahead of him. Ibrahim sends in a question, says, guaranteed week 15 bye week. Okay, sounds good. For week 16 and 17, I only want, is that want? No. Only what running backs would you rather have than Breece Hall? Okay, I understand what you're saying now. And should I overpay for Jacobs since he plays Saints in week 16? All right, let me look at week 16 and 17 schedule real quick, and then I'll be able to give you an indicator as to what I prefer out of those potential games. Because like James Conner against Carolina, week 16, that's something that may be a little bit more affordable than a Josh Jacobs theoretically in that circumstance. But let me see what we have in terms of rest of season strength of schedule here. So when I look at week 16 and 17, okay? So Arizona versus Carolina, very good matchup. I like the idea of, obviously, Minnesota versus Seattle. So Aaron Jones is pretty solid. Let's see here. What else is another pretty solid matchup? Yeah, Green Bay versus New Orleans is solid. Tennessee versus Indianapolis is also a good one. Let's see. What else? Detroit versus Chicago. I mean, they're going to run through Chicago, especially considering it's at Chicago. Probably be a weather game. It's going to be a David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, staple. Each of them get 15 rushing attempts minimum. Let's see here. What's another good matchup? That's not great. That's not great. Nope. I think that's pretty much like the great, like I mean, honestly, looking at it, Jacksonville running backs versus Las Vegas may not be bad at all in that circumstance either. But across the board, yeah, the most intriguing matchups for week 16 at running back, James Conner, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs. Those would be the three that I'm very much so intrigued to potentially getting on my team in order to kind of secure a victory and then get me one step closer to the fantasy championship. Which again, in that circumstance, then the week after, of course, James Conner takes on the LA Rams. The Minnesota Vikings will take on Green Bay, which again, another revenge game for Aaron Jones, should be fun. And then, Josh Jacobs taking on Minnesota, not as intriguing. So probably either Aaron Jones or James Conner in that circumstance would be a couple of plays that I would try to lean in the direction of Ibrahim. And then it says, should I overpay for Jacobs since he plays week? Yeah, if you can go after Conner or Aaron Jones, that would be preferred. Sounds good? Thank you. Eddie J sends in a question. Says, standard league, I traded CD for Neighbors and Rashad White. Awesome. That's great. Again, Rachaad White's upcoming schedule is pretty solid. I'd rather have Bucky Irving throughout that span of time, but Rachaad White's still going to be implicated for a solid volume of overall touches and fantasy points, essentially. As for your next thing, it says also pick 2 wide receivers, Pop Douglas, Pearsall, Ray, Ikine, Pierce, Shepard, or A.D. Mitchell. Now, if we're playing these wide receivers this week, there are a lot of contingencies. Now, out of all these receiving options, the highest ranked that I have would be Pop Douglas and Shepard. Now, in the event we're in a situation in which we get confirmation that either Pitts and or London are going to miss, Ray McLeod would take over Shepard's spot. And then you would play Pop Douglas with Ray McLeod. And that is it. That's the way I go about it. Thank you, Eddie. Benny G says, Ian Rappaport has Nico playing, FYI. Ian Rappaport has Nico playing. Okay, so let's go see what he said. Let's go see what the Mr. Rappaport said. It says, a boost to the Texans star wide receiver Nico Collins, who had been on injured reserve for a hamstring and practiced just yesterday. Activated for the 53-man roster. So he's going to pull in Puka Nacua for us. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, if Nico Collins is active, we're starting him. I mean, that's just how it is. That's how good of a receiver he is. So yeah, I mean, at this point, thank you for the information, Benny. I appreciate it. So that's the way we go about it. Now, the question that I answered earlier to Nathan Salazar, we're still playing Tank Dell there, by the way. I'm still playing him over BTJ because I honestly do believe with Nico Collins pulling all the coverage on the other side of the field, it'll just open up more opportunity for, Tank Dell on the opposite side. But I appreciate the update there. When did that even get posted? It was like 30 minutes ago, maybe? All right, KB sends in a question, says, is London a decoy? I mean, I doubt it. If he's out there, I don't think that, look, I don't see that they would put him out there to just run decoy routes. Like, if they're going to throw him out there, they're going to actually utilize him because they don't need him to win. Okay, you got to remember, this Saints team is not a good football team. So, as of right now, I would assume that if he's active, it's because he's going to be at a full capacity. Now, your next question was Tank, if no Nico or Connor in the flex. It looks like Nico's playing. So, at that point, if it's between Connor versus, that's a really good one, Connor versus the Jets or Tank Dell versus Detroit's secondary, I'd probably still play Connor there as of right now. Thank you. Thomas Dabney sends in a question, says, Andrew, you ever thought of doing a segment with just picks? And why don't you post defensive and kicker rankings throughout the week? I cover defense and kicker rankings every Sunday morning. That's why. There's no necessity to mention them throughout the week because I do it on Sunday morning. So if you're not able to make it to a Sunday morning, that it is what it is. That's just a sacrifice that I'm willing to move with. Now, understand, the reason why I don't primarily talk about kickers and defenses throughout the week, all transparency, it will get 0 views. Quite frankly, it will get 0 views. There are not very many leagues that play with kickers and defenses. It's just in the same way in which there's not very many leagues that play with 2 quarterbacks, right? They're very niche circumstances. So again, yeah, ultimately it's just a matter of like, is it worth my time and effort, or can I just show it on screen on a Sunday morning and it'll do the same amount of overall service per se. Now, as for a segment for just picks, I do that every week. In the Hidden Gems episode, at the end of the episode, I specifically talk about just my specific underdog picks. Otherwise, if you're talking about picks like wins and losses, that is not my forte. I'm here to talk about performances rather than specifically which team is going to win, because whether a team wins or loses is a completely different conversation in the grand scheme. Thank you. Corey Miller sends in a question. Says PPR. Off PPR, or Nico Collins off the PPR. IR. Okay, very well. I have Worthy Downs who play at 10, CD who plays at 125. Do I put Nico in my lineup and hope he plays? I have no pivot option. Listen, if he's activated for the 53-man roster, that means he's playing tomorrow, which again is ridiculous that he is going to, but I'm going to fire him up. Yeah. If it's my team, he's in my starting lineup alongside of CD Lamb and Downs. Those would be the 3 that I'd like to play out of those 4. Thank you. Let's see here. Cody Dean says full PPR, pick 2, DeAndre Hopkins, David Montgomery, Adams. Out of those 3, if I'm picking 2 in a full PPR, I'm playing Adams and D-Hop. Next question, tight end Ingram or Hawkinson? I'd rather have Ingram. Thank you. Alex Ongrass sends in a question, says standard Addison, Leggett, or Ridley. Out of those 3 options, I'd rather have Addison in my starting lineup. Next question, 6-point per passing touchdown, Darnold or JD5? In a 6-point per passing touchdown league, I'm probably playing Sam Darnold there, honestly. That's the way I go about it. Full PPR, BTJ or Shakir. I'd rather have Shakir. And then the last question, White or Bucky Irving? I'd rather have Bucky Irving. Thank you. David Dooley says, I have Stafford. Drop Stroud since his O-line sucks. The O-line doesn't have to do with anything, in my opinion. Stroud played with 4 backup offensive linemen for the first 7 weeks of last season. And he played incredibly well throughout that span of time. So the offensive line really isn't, in my opinion, the issue. It's just a matter of, are his receivers getting open and does he have enough receiving talent out there? So in this scenario, again, you can have Stafford and keep him rest of the season, or again, just keep Stroud and play the best matchup within a given week. Josh Holt sends in a question, says, thanks for the advice, man. Much appreciated. No problem, Josh. I appreciate that. Frosty, what are you saying? I'm trying to trade away Kamara and Olave for a top running back. As we speak, LOL. Can't trust them Saints anymore? No, you shouldn't. I mean, again, trading Kamara, I understand the idea behind it because, again, if you can't trust the Saints because they're going to lose every game outright, fine. But understand that Kamara is still playing for his own individual kind of, upside. He's a competitor. He still has incentives within his contract that if he continues to gain yardage, X, Y, and Z, keep scoring touchdowns, extra millions, keep the rack in. On top of it, could be an all-pro, could be a Pro Bowl. There's other incentives that, I would assume will keep Kamara on track to continuing to dominate. So I'm not so interested in moving him rather than, yes, let's get rid of Olave. Chuba Hubbard or James Conner? I'd only play Chuba Hubbard over Conner in the event that Jonathan Brooks is inactive. If he's inactive, I'd play Hubbard. Otherwise, I'm playing Conner. Jurassic Dodo says, Cup for Nico. Trade will process Tuesday. Why would it process Tuesday? Why can't you get your commissioner to just do it now? If you go into your Jurassic, if your commissioner goes into the settings of your league, they can make it so where the transaction immediately processes as soon as he accepts it or as soon as the vote goes through. If you're going to make the move, I think you make it now or never kind of thing. I don't know. I don't know why you would wait for it. But hey, if you want to make the trade, I don't have an issue with it. I do prefer Nico rest of the season in comparison to Cup. But yeah, I would like to get him on roster sooner rather than later. Let's see here. Waleed says, should I start Stafford over Kyler in a 6-point per passing touchdown? Yes, absolutely. I would do so, Waleed. All right, my YouTube just crashed. I have to reset the whole thing now. 1 second. Sorry about that. Waiting for maybe my internet went out. Did it go out? No. I'm still live. Just extremely laggy. All right, well, let's hope that it recovers here in a second. YouTube just crashed. Okay, there it is. Going back to the live chat. Let's see here. Frenzy 40 cases and a 10-team full PPR. I need 2 flex between Mostert. Nope. Shepard. Nope. Demario Douglas. Maybe. Pierce. Taysom. Hawkinson. Parker Washington. Yeah, I'd probably play Taysom Hill. I'm not even joking. I'd probably play Taysom Hill and Hawkinson here. I'd consider Taysom Hill and Pop Douglas, but I think I'm going to go with both the tight ends there, Frenzy. Ando says in a half PPR, Addison or Jamison Williams. I'd probably rather play Addison at the moment, but they're going to be back-to-back ranked by tomorrow morning, most likely. Ken says in a half PPR, I need a 1 in the flex. I have Bucky, Jennings, Leggett, and Coker. Out of those available options in a half PPR, I'd probably play Bucky Irving there. What are your best streamers to replace Austin Seibert? Is Jake Moody available? That's my primary question. If Jake Moody's available, he should already be on roster. In the event in which he has already been rostered, as he should have been, the next best theoretical streaming option at kicker very much so depends on what's available. But I would assume that Chad Ryland, the Arizona kicker, is probably available in your league. That's the next man up. If not, I'd also be willing to roll with Matt Gay for the Colts. I'd also be willing to go after Jake Bates, the Detroit Lions kicker. Maybe even Jason Sanders, Joshua Carty. Those are potential options that you could kind of go down the road. Alan sends in a question. Thank you, Alan. Says, Cheetah, PPR, keep or sell? Who can I trade for if I do? I mean, here's the thing. Tyreek Hill, look, this is what I will say. There are very few players in fantasy that are untradeable, right? There are very few players that have so much value that you don't even consider moving them off roster. Like a player that I would potentially throw in that category is Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. Those are players that, as of right now, unless someone is giving me 3 top 5 running backs, unless someone's giving me Achane and McCaffrey, I'm not giving away Saquon, right? It'd be very difficult to move him off roster in any sort of circumstance. So in the case of Cheetah, I don't have him in that category. I think that if somebody offers you something that is of comparable value for rest of season purposes, yes, I'd be willing to take it. So in the event that, again, you're trying to get out of the situation, players that I would want to have in exchange, I would be happy to get guys like Puka Nacua. I'd be happy to get, well, actually, you know what? Puka's injury, it's kind of the same kind of almost overall risk. But Puka's, Neighbors, St. Brown's, Garrett Wilson's, AJ Brown's, those are the kind of players. That pretty much cuts it. Maybe Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson. But again, Justin Jefferson is probably impossible to get. So again, Neighbors, St. Brown, Puka Kupp, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown. That would be the room of receivers in which you could probably pivot them off for. Otherwise, I think everything else is a little bit too low of potential value. Considering the uncertainty of Puka and maybe even the uncertainty of like Drake London, you don't make those moves entirely as of right now, because you don't want to be trading an injured player for an injured player if, in fact, they're going to potentially re-aggravate something. So maybe going after those healthier players would probably be the best kind of path for you at the moment. Tyler King says, is Nico playing? Based on what we have read, yeah. Seems as if that is the case. Let's see here. Jeff Joyner says, I'm struggling to play Stafford over Tua. Then play Tua. I mean, again, if you have both options, you're in luck. You get to Monday night. If Tyreek Hill is inactive, then you're playing Stafford. If Tyreek Hill is active, then you play Tua. You're good to go. The decision will be made for you in that circumstance, though, Jeff. So you have no kind of risk on the situation, considering you have both available. Brandon Hunt sends in a question. Thank you, Brandon. Brandon says, I need one wide receiver, Tank or Nico. Yeah, I mean, as of the two, I'd rather play Nico Collins. If he's active, he's in my lineup. And then it says wide receiver 2, CD, Flex, Tracy. Okay, so hold on, wait. Wide receiver 1, Tank / Nico. So basically, yeah, if Nico's active, which he's going to be, he would play, and then you're saying CeeDee Lamb second, which I'm perfectly fine with. Then in the flex, do we play Tracy or do we play Pickens? Yeah, I would play Tracy there in the flex. So yeah, Nico, CeeDee, Tracy. That's a great overall approach as of right now. Thank you. I have Seibert, and he's been ruled out. Yeah, pivot. Got to definitely move him to the IR spot for sure at that point. Sammy Munoz sends in a question, says, drop one tight end, ? Pitts, Kraft, or Hawkinson? Oh, sorry, for Hawkinson. Am I dropping either of those for Hawkinson at the moment? Probably not. Here's the issue. Kraft has been way too good as of late to drop outright. He is a trading option. Pitts in the same boat. Considering Hawkinson, again, is still too, kind of still green this season, hasn't really had that many snaps, hasn't played enough games, only one game under his belt with only 45% of the snaps. Considering that as a situation, you cannot just outright drop Pitts or Kraft unless you're playing in like a 10, not even 10, maybe a 8 to 6 team league. If that's what kind of league you play in and everyone's got a stud tight end, then sure, we can have the conversation. Otherwise, no. Is Hill's wrist injury serious? I mean, it's serious enough to where he didn't practice last 2 days, and they have the questionable tag on him, so we'll have to wait and see. The Digital Print House sends in a question. It says, trade Otton for Amari Cooper. Interesting. I probably would say no to that. Even when Mike Evans returns, Cade Otton is still going to be highly valuable within the offense. Because even though he'll go from being the number 1 receiving option probably to the number 2, understand that the way that he's being utilized within the offense, he's pretty much just dominating the middle of the field, just as in the same way in which Chris Godwin was doing. So he's pretty much utilizing the same space and region to find his success. And while Mike Evans is going to play on the outside and play over the top of opposing defenses. So quite frankly, I think I'd probably just keep Otton in this scenario long term. Let's see here. Jalen Warren or Jamison Williams? Yeah, I'd rather play Jamison Williams there. Waddle or Hopkins in the flex? Again, considering I don't know the status of Tyreek Hill, I'm just going to say Hopkins for now. Dalton Kincaid or Jake Ferguson? Dalton Kincaid is the preferred. Start 2 between Collins, Waddle, Marvin Harrison, Hopkins. It's probably Collins and Hopkins at the moment. Yeah, not probably, it is. All hoops. If you spam like that again, you're just gonna get timed out. You can't spam 5 questions in 30 seconds, brother. Just don't do that. Like the Jeans sends in a question. Thank you, Like Jeans. Says someone offered me Baker. What does it say? DK and Montgomery for Henry. Oh, jeez. Okay. My other backs are Jacobs and Chubb. All right. My wide receivers are Devontae Smith, Pickens, Wandale Robinson, and Ricky Pearsall. Cool. Yeah, so if you see yourself starting DK Montgomery and Baker every game rest of season, then yeah, I take the deal. Because again, in the long term, it's definitely going to be able to kind of give you more upside in that circumstance. Mikey says, I apologize. I didn't hear you if you answered. But if Christian McCaffrey doesn't play, no, he will play. It's not even a question. Am I playing? Yeah, no. I mean, listen, I will give you your answer just so you have the contingency available, but he's going to play tomorrow. It's not even in question. So it says, if Christian McCaffrey doesn't play, am I playing him or Rashad? The question doesn't even make sense, Mikey, actually. That doesn't make any sense. If he doesn't play, do I play him or Rashad White? Which doesn't make any sense. If he doesn't play, he doesn't play. You're playing Rashad White. So even the question itself is a little bit flawed to an extent. Fantasy Forecast says trade CD for Evans. Yeah, we said that yesterday, right? We'd be willing to do that, absolutely. I'd make that move. I'd get Evans because in the long term, I think it's definitely going to pan out. Fish Clinic says D-Hop or Josh Downs. For this upcoming week, let me see where I have D-Hop in a full PPR in comparison. In a full PPR, I'd rather have Josh Downs. In a half PPR, I'd rather have DeAndre Hopkins. Let's see here. Lopez sends in a question. It says, I have to drop one, Laporta or Kraft. I'd rather drop Laporta. I'm not even joking. That's where we've come to. It's really at that point. So, unfortunately, his lack of overall utilization and his lack of consistency has led us to this point. Again, I'd love for Sam Laporta to be a consistent option, but the fact of the matter is, this is the greatest drop-off, fall-off of all time at the tight end position. I haven't seen something like this in a long while, to say the very least. Let's see here. Taysom Hill, Evan Ingram, or Pitts. If we're talking about this week, it depends on scoring format, Liam. So what's your scoring format? Again, do not forget to remind me of your scoring format, guys. If it's not included within the question, it's almost impossible to answer outright. Because I'm going to answer it for one person. They're going to think it applies for their league. And then I've got 3 different people thinking that applies for their league, which it doesn't because it'll variably change based on the scoring format. Nathan Salazar says defense, 49ers, Lions, Chiefs. Between those 3, let me see where I have them ranked. 49ers, Lions, Chiefs. So between those 3 options, I have it as Chiefs number 1, Lions number 2, and 49ers number 3. That's the way that I'd go about it. Considering the return of Nico Collins, it could lower my overall standing for the Lions, but for sure the Chiefs are my number 1 as of this week, taking on that defense. Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate it. Waddle for Lamb. You're going to be trading for Lamb? Are we sure about that? Murica says, should I try to trade Waddle for if Hill out? Should you try to trade Waddle if Hill out? I don't know about that, but you could definitely try. I mean, that's definitely in the realm of possibility. As to what you get in exchange is definitely the question. Liam says I'm in a full PPR. Then you play Ingram there. Yeah, in a full PPR, you play Ingram. Are we playing Nico even if he's in a 820 game? Yeah, I mean, look, again, here's the thing. As of right now, there is implied risk, of course. If you don't have a pivoting option, then you can go ahead and wait, play somebody else. Like, let's say, for example, you have Mooney or you have Nico Collins. This is a hypothetical situation. You don't know if Nico is going to play tomorrow night. You're going to assume that he does. If we get no information outside of what we have seen today, you can just play Mooney. Take the safe play, wait for Nico Collins next week. Because really, I'd rather end up with a player that is actually going to score than one that sits, on a Sunday Night Football game in which I'm worried, like, okay, he doesn't play. Now I have to pick up Robert Woods and play him and hope he catches the ball once, much less, twice. We'll see if he can do. I don't think he can even catch the ball twice. I don't think he's done that this season thus far. Christian Miller sends in a question. Thank you, Christian Miller. Let me see where your question is in the live chat. Says, what's up, bro? In a full PPR, I need a flex between Hopkins, Taysom Hill, and Sterling Shepard. Yeah, I'd rather play Hopkins number 1, Taysom Hill 2, and Sterling Shepard number 3. Also, should I give up Hopkins and Mooney for Jefferson? Yes, absolutely. I'd give that away in a heartbeat. It's not even close. Immediately would have already been done, Christian. Thank you. Quincy Jones says, in a PPR, rank these players. London, Debo, Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, Hunt, Kupp. Okay. So, okay. Let's go at this one at a time. For this week, full PPR, all these, 6 players? I got to look at this. I have to compare it to my actual full PPR rankings. So, looking at it across the board, the way that we have it ranked, where's Gibbs on my list? So I'm gonna have to, you know what I'm gonna have to do? I'm gonna have to write down all these names because there's too many of them. So we have London, Debo, we have Gibbs, we have CMC, we have Hunt, and we have Cup. Okay. So in a full PPR, let's see who we have ranked the highest. Out of this group, Cup is number 1. Number 2 is Christian McCaffrey. Number 3 is Jahmyr Gibbs. Number 4 is Deebo Samuel. Number 5 is Drake London. And number 6 is Kareem Hunt. Okay? So again, from top to the bottom, to answer your question once again, Quincy, I have it Cup, Christian McCaffrey, Gibbs, Deebo, London, Hunt. That's the order. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Michael, who says, in a non-PPR flex 1 between D-Hop, Otton, and Bucky. In a non-PPR yeah, I'm playing Otton there. Even in a non-PPR. The yardage and touchdown upside is all I need. Thank you. JK in the live chat says, what's up, Drew? How are you feeling about London if he does play? If he does play, then I'm feeling very confident about the overall situation because, again, when we think about what the primary threat to London's overall potential for upside was within a given week taking on the Saints, it was cornerback coverage. Obviously, earlier this week, we did see the trade of Marshawn Lattimore being sent to the Washington Commanders. Their number 2 cornerback, Kool-Aid McKinstry, is out once again this week. Not only that, we have Paulson Adebo, who's also on the injured reserve. So their number 2 and number 3 cornerbacks are going to have to play against Mooney and London. This should be a feast for Kirk Cousins this week and his receivers. Because, again, this secondary is dealing with a lot of, deficiencies with the injuries. And additionally, they can't even stop the run, so it's going to open up even more potential for play action. Yeah, if I have an opportunity to start my Falcons this week, London, Mooney, Bijan, Pitts, Kirk, I'm going to do it. Again, assuming they're healthy and active. The Hound says, Andrew, question is below. Sounds good. I see it. Says, in a 10-team full PPR league, I have Hurts, Bijan, Henry, D-Hop, Amari, Andrews, Hunt, Jennings. I got DJ Moore on the bench. Need a wide receiver. Okay. Trade Hunt and Cooper for Shakir. Whew, that's an interesting decision. If you are willing to okay. Hunt is on a ticking time bomb. Like I was mentioning earlier with somebody who was asking about trading for Pacheco. Expect that Pacheco returns in week 12. So again, you'll probably have this week and next week with Hunt, which again, I'm willing to ship him off as fodder. Now, in this overall situation, moving Amari Cooper for Shakir. In a full PPR, I think that's perfectly fine. It makes sense. I understand it because eventually Keon Coleman will return. So yeah, I don't mind the trade. Do I think you're giving up too much for Shakir? Potentially. But in the long term, once Hunt is gone, again, you're going to wish that you had traded him away because, again, once Pacheco returns, he's taking over and he's going to be the 20 carry per game kind of guy on the team. Let's see here. Mikey says, in regards to my last question, I meant to say Mason instead of Rashad. Got it. In the event, okay. In the event that we have a situation in which Christian McCaffrey is inactive, I would not play Mason. I cannot trustfully do it. I would rather play Rachaad White in the event that Christian McCaffrey is inactive. Because the last 3 games that we have seen Jordan Mason play, he gets hit, he falls on the floor, he goes to the medical tent, and he does not come back. 2 of the last 3 games. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, I'm a fucking idiot. Not doing that. No chance am I getting fooled like that 3 times in a row. Angel Montero says, hey, Andrew, I'm cooking now. Traded away Kraft and Cooper for Kittle. Thoughts? Yeah, no issue with that at all. Kittle's the best tight end in football right now outside of Brock Bowers. So I think it'll serve you well in the long term for sure, especially off their bye. Tyreek or Jennings? Again, it's very much so dependent on whether you have a pivoting option for Monday night. If you don't have a pivoting option, you can take the risk and let's say, for example, I'm just going to throw out a hypothetical. So if you have Tyreek Hill, you understand where you are kind of approaching it with. If you have Tyreek Hill and you are going to start 3 wide receivers this week, 2 as your starting wide receivers and 1 in the flex, I would suggest that you move Tyreek Hill to the flex spot. And then I would subsequently suggest that you would go out and pick up Jonnu Smith to have him as a pivoting option. And once you've secured something of that extent, either having Jonnu or Mostert or somebody like that, Demarcus Robinson, as a pivoting option for Tyreek Hill, I'm pushing into Monday night trying to play him over guys like Jennings. Chris M4 sends in a question. Chris, very generous of you. Thank you. Says, what trade should I make to improve my wide receiver 2 in a 10-team full PPR? I have Jalen Hurts, okay, Achane Gibbs, Connor, Chase Brown. Okay, so your quarterback and running backs, beautiful, spotless. You even have Najee Harris, which again, I mean, it makes your running back depth that much more solidified. But quite frankly, you don't need to have this many stud running backs. Probably look to try to move one of these for a wide receiver. Anyway, in the event that when we get there, you have Justin Jefferson, Devontae Smith, Tank Dell, Darnell Mooney, JSN, which again is a bunch of great wide receivers, but we're looking for a wide receiver 2 in specific. So my primary suggestion at the moment, let me go look at the upcoming schedule for wide receivers, because again, I would assume that we're probably trying to prepare for the fantasy playoffs. Could be mistaken in that overall assumption, but in the event that we are, and we're looking towards weeks 15 through 17, okay? When I look at the upcoming schedule for teams, like I'd very much so like to have a Jaden Reed on roster. I very much so would like to. Taking on Seattle, New Orleans, and Minnesota, thank you, thank you, thank you. I would like to have Jaden Reed on roster. That would be a solid wide receiver 2 in my opinion, rest of the way. Outside of that, I look at the potential schedule across the board. You already have JSN, which is solid. I would potentially consider maybe moving and trying to get DK Metcalf as well, as they take on Green Bay, Minnesota, Chicago. Again, the Green Bay, Minnesota games are the ones that I'm more intrigued with. But again, there's a variable risk in there. Outside of that, yeah, I think Jaden Reed is the guy that I'm primarily going to go after, because Devontae Smith is pretty solid. You could even venture to go out right now and go after Jalen Waddle. But those would be the primary suggestions. Now, again, that would be for your wide receiver 2. That would be under the assumption that you get a wide receiver 2. Now, if you go all in and theoretically go and get like Malik Neighbors to be your wide receiver 2, let's say, for example, somebody would take Chase Brown and Mooney off your hands and then give you Neighbors, let's do it, because you're not going to need either of those two, and you will get Neighbors, right? So there are many of ways you can go about this. You have so much depth at running back that you can afford to really make any move you want. Because your quarterback and tight ends are solidified rest of the way, obviously McBride has an upcoming bye week, so make sure you pick up a tight end off of the waiver in order to prepare for next week. But outside of that scenario, like Achane, Gibbs, and Connor should be your primary 3. Chase Brown, Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, Tank Dell, Mooney, JSN, they're all fodder in order to try to secure that wide receiver 2. So unless it's a Jaden Reed, which again is going to be a little bit more affordable, I'm going after Neighbors, which again is the high-end overall price, or you can go after that middle-of-the-pack overall conversation, in which you're going after a Deebo Samuel, a Drake London, a DK Metcalf, a Devontae Adams of sorts. Thank you. All right, Jeremy Melendez says, flex Ingram, Wanda Robinson, or Leggett in a full PPR. I would much rather play Ingram over the group. The way I currently have it ranked would be Ingram, Wanda Robinson, Leggett in that exact order, but Ingram would be the preferred. All right, let's see here. B. Bolt says, you be the GOAT. Thank you. Appreciate it. Standard League, Stafford or Cousins, Tyreek or Neighbors. Thank you. Okay. So B Bolt, I think Neighbors has to play, because again, he plays tomorrow morning in Germany. So we're going to have to just roll with that. And I even have him ranked higher than Tyreek at the moment. Now, as for Stafford or Cousins, okay, because I don't know whether or not we're going to have Drake London active. If by tomorrow we get a confirmation that Drake London is active, I'll just play Cousins there. I wouldn't even have to push it into Monday night. But if he is inactive, then Stafford is the safer of the two as of right now. Angel Montero says, thoughts on my slip? Allen over 1. What is it? Allen over 1.5. Darnold over 1.5. Daniel Jones over 1.5. Mac Jones interception. You know, I actually like that. Now that, I mean, the Mac Jones interception, I think, is very much so a likely outcome, especially considering, what was it, last season? What did I say? He threw 12 interceptions in 11 games. I think only 2 of his 11 games did not include an interception, and those were games that he was pulled out in. So yeah, I would venture to say that's a pretty good looking slip as of right now, because I really do believe that Darnold is capable. As for Daniel Jones, that one's a little bit tougher, especially when you take on Carolina, because again, there's always the rushing potential of Jones himself and or Tracy, which is definitely going to be an impact. But otherwise, I think Josh Allen and Mac Jones, Darnold, those are the safe ones. Daniel Jones is the sketchiest of the bunch. I would assume he probably has the highest multi of the group. Constantino says, what's good, my boy? What's up? PPR starting Jameer, Montgomery, Pollard, or Jawan? Yeah, Jameer, Montgomery, and Pollard. Those are the 3. If we get to pick 3, those are the 3. Otherwise, I'm just playing both of the Detroit Lions running backs. Let's see here. Football says, in a full PPR, week 14, quarterback is Kirko Aaron Rodgers or Danny Dimes. Let me look at week 14 schedule. Week 14 NFL. So we have Aaron Rodgers versus the Dolphins. Okay, we have Kirk versus the Vikings, and then oh wow, that revenge game. Yeah, I kind of feel like that might be the play. Or Daniel Jones versus the Saints. Yeah, it's Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones would be the preferred at the time, but Kirk Cousins' revenge game in Minnesota seems like such a beautiful circumstance in which I would like to probably roll with that because of the if I'm not mistaken, almost every revenge game this season has panned out for the players. Like Stephon Diggs played well, DJ Moore played well. I'm trying to think of other potential revenge games that we've seen this season. Team players, taking on their former teams. Saquon Barkley was incredible. Who's another player this season that who had a massive revenge game and played well? But yeah, that's what I'm immediately thinking. I'm thinking I want to play Daniel Jones. Kirk Cousins is very intriguing because of the idea of playing against Minnesota. Let's see here. Scrolling down. Rap Tracks 777 says full PPR pick 3 between Mooney, Downs, Ramondre, Devontae Smith, and Jameson Williams. Mooney, Ramondre, and Devontae Smith in a half PPR are probably the preferred as of right now. Jacob Glover says, should I trade BTJ for Otton and Tracy? Yes, I would. I'm cool with that. Again, if you're going to need a tight end and a running back rest of the way, this is a great overall influx of players that are very dependable, in my opinion, rest of the way. Gabriel Martin says, start Mooney over Ramondre Stevenson in a standard scoring format. Only in the event that Drake London is out would I do that. Otherwise, in a standard scoring league, the running back is, especially the running back that has red zone rushing upside and touchdown upside, is the preferred. All right, let's see here. Andrew Montoya sends in a question. Says in a half PPR, pick 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex between Hill, D-Hop, Pickens, Adams, Kelsey, Montgomery, Pollard, and Achane. Okay, really good players across the board. I was going to say, I don't know. I mean, I can understand the hesitancy as to choosing, but I mean, look, you know who to start at running back. I think it's relatively simple. Achane has to play, and it's not even a question. He's just the best option of the available within the overall circumstance. Now, obviously, the Tennessee Titans, with Will Levis there, it becomes a little bit sketchy in the grand scheme. Let me see here. Where do I have Pollard ranked in comparison to Montgomery in a half PPR earlier? Is it a half or full PPR question? Let me see here. It's a half PPR. Okay, cool. So if we go look at, let's close this, go here, half PPR, running back. Montgomery is there, Pollard is there. So yeah, at the moment, I'm probably leaning towards Montgomery and Achane as your running backs. 2 wide receivers. I mean, considering, again, you don't really technically have a pivoting option for Hill, it may just be smart to go with Pickens and Adams, clearing away, play Kelsey as your flex, and keep it moving. That's probably the way that I'd go about it as of right now. Jordan Sumner sends in a question. Jordan, where is your question? There it is. Says, hey, Andrew, in a full PPR, Tank Dell or Juwan Jennings? I'd rather play Tank Dell. Regardless of whether or not Nico Collins is active, Tank Dell will be ranked higher than Juwan Jennings. Donovan says, in a 14-team full PPR, would you trade Kyler plus Jaden Reed for Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith? Interesting. I'm currently have Jamar Chase, Mike Evans, Jameson Williams, Cedric Tillman, and Roma Dunze. Okay, would I be willing to trade Kyler? Yes, I would. I would be willing to make that trade. Give me Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith the rest of season very comfortably. Thank you. Sean Gray in the chat says, should I flex Marvin Harrison or Hawkinson? In a full PPR, don't know if I can trust Harrison against the Jets. You know, I thought the same thing about Harrison versus the Dolphins 2 weeks ago, and he went for 25 points. So the thing about Harrison is very much so, what is the game script going to allow for? Are they going to have to throw the ball for a majority of the game in order to be competitive? If the answer is yes, which I assume that to be the case, then they're probably going to have to litter him with targets. Last week was pretty much just a function of the offense. Unfortunately, just being in a situation where, you know, you're up 20 plus points. You don't need to run the ball, and they can't stop the run anyway. So they just continue to, milk the clock by running the ball. So as of right now, between the two, considering I don't know what kind of Hawkinson we'll see, if he's going to play 40% of the snaps against 60, 80. If he's an 80% Hawkinson, I'd probably rather have him, especially against the Jaguars. But considering I am uncertain of the overall usage and shares that he will get, I think I'll just roll with Harrison as of right now, Sean. It's a lot of uncertainty in the scenario. Najee Henderson says, in a half PPR, Waddle, Pearsall, or Quentin Johnston? I'd rather have Waddle as of right now. Thank you. Tommy D sends in a question. Says, in a standard league, currently have Gibbs, Kyron, Hill playing in Sunday/Monday night football games. So we'll probably be behind before Sunday night football. Very well. Hill is in at wide receiver, and I'm assuming he misses. Okay, understood. Dell is a Sunday night football, or DeAndre Hopkins and Marvin Harrison in the early games. Interesting. So this is my suggestion. I want to play Dell. So I'm going to push it until Sunday night. If by Sunday night we get any sort of indicator as to whether or not Tyreek Hill is going to play, because tomorrow, even though it is a Sunday day in which everyone is playing, the Miami Dolphins and the Los Angeles Rams are still having walkthroughs. If we get information announced to the public that Tyreek Hill is going to go through that walkthrough and be prepared to play for Monday Night Football, if we get that indicator before that Sunday night game, then you would wait out and you would play Tyreek Hill on Monday. Otherwise, you probably just have to play Dell on Sunday Night Football in your situation, Tommy. Thank you. Ando says Bass or Aubrey. I'd rather have Tyler Bass. Anonymous says half PPR, DJ Moore or BTJ. I think I'm going to go with DJ Moore this week, unironically. It's tough because I don't know if I can trust Mac Jones outright. Dom says, I need help. Wan'Dale Robinson or Rome Odunze. Depends on scoring format. If it's a half PPR, I'll take Rome Odunze. If it's a standard, I'll take Rome Odunze. If it's a full PPR, at that point, I will take Wan'Dale Robinson. Vikings or Cardinals, defense rest season, Vikings. The People's tight end says, bro, I want to trade Jamar for depth, but nobody is taking him. Because you know why? Because they know that you're going to take 3 players off their team and they can't afford it. That's the issue. Maybe if you only ask for 2, you could get away with it. But yeah, if someone has to give away their full team of starters for 1 player, they're not going to do it because they know, Jamar Chase scoring 55 fantasy points is not a consistent thing. He'll do that once a year. If I remember, going back to Jamar Chase's rookie season, what was it, like week 17 against the Chiefs? Or was it week 16? He went for 55 fantasy points. Then last season against the Arizona Cardinals, I think it was either week 5, maybe week 6, went for like 45 fantasy points. He has these games every year, but he only does it like one time. So he's pretty much scratched off his overall monster game. If he was to do it again, it would be a surprise. Fabian says in a question, says Kareem Hunt or Tracy for this week. As of those 2, I prefer to play Tracy. Next question, an Amari Cooper or BTJ. If Amari Cooper is active, I would prefer to play him. Thank you. Going back into the live chat, Waleed has sent in a question. He said, if Hill and London don't play, my only wide receivers are Garrett Wilson with Reed on bye. I have Rico, Bucky, and Montgomery. Who do I even flex? And I don't even pick up Jennings, JMO, Worthy, Douglas. Okay, got it. So in this scenario, in the event in which Hill and London are inactive for you, Waleed, again, you won't know whether or not Hill is inactive until Monday night. But in the event that we do know beforehand, Montgomery's your flex. But then you would go and you'd pick up Jamison, Williams, and Jennings, and those would be the 2 guys that you're playing. Now, as for between the 2, who I would prefer to play would be Juwan Jennings at the moment. Daniel Thomas in the chat says, start Tracy, Lamb, or Waddle in a full PPR if Hill is out. I'm not going to know until Monday or maybe Sunday night if Hill is going to be active. So again, I can't make a speculation on that. So as of right now, I'm just going to lean it between either playing Lamb or Tyrone Tracy. In a full PPR event, let me see where I have Tracy in comparison to him. In a full PPR, I have Lamb still 3 spots ahead of Tracy. Thank you. Let's see here. Jeremy says DJ Moore or Waddle in a standard. I'd rather play Waddle there. Isaiah Garcia says Jamison Williams or BTJ. I think I'd probably rather play Jamison Williams. 2 for flinching says, should I drop Bigsby for ETN or ETN? Excuse me. Honestly, no. You don't have to drop them unless you're getting an actual player that is going to fill into your lineup and actually help. Lankdog says, your help with my prop betting has been invaluable. Thank you, Andrew. No problem. I'm glad to help. I'm glad that that's hitting. Yeah, this season, I did the math the other day. In terms of suggestions I've made on Monday waiver wire video, Thursday quarterback and tight end ranking videos, and then the hidden gems videos, I have a 7. Wait, no. Wait, where's the number? Let me go pull this up. My accuracy is pretty ridiculous. Yeah, I have a 79% accuracy on individual plays. Trying to make it 80. So again, we've been pretty good. So 8 out of every 10 plays that I pick higher or lower on hit, which again, so far so good. And that's out of a total of 77 different players that I've selected on, higher or lower, on those 3 specific videos. Otherwise, I haven't even scrubbed through live streams, which I've done some on live streams for sure. Let's see here. Tommy in the chat says, can Evan Ingram be trusted with Mac Jones? Yes, he's the only one that can honestly be trusted, because you know that the offense is predicated on throwing the tight end the ball on a consistent basis. And even when we go back to Mac Jones and his usage with the New England Patriots, he always wanted to get Hunter Henry involved. So he's comfortable with that overall scenario. And again, it's a Doug Peterson offense. They want to utilize the tight end position more than any. You got to remember, even with CJ Beathard at quarterback last season, Evan Ingram was getting himself 10 targets per game. So the entire week, they've probably told Mac Jones, this is the only player you're throwing to. You see big number 17 over there, Evan Ingram? Throw him the damn ball. Jamie, okay, let's see here. We move down. Jeremy, thank you. Appreciate it. Miguel Garcia says, in a full PPR, I traded Debo for Kenneth Walker. Thoughts? I have no issue with that. That sounds good to me. JJ, I'm on Raw, T. Higgins. Yeah, cool. Sounds good. It gives you a lot more running back kind of stability going forward, and I don't think you traded up too much. I think that's a great, solid trade overall. Well done. Ferguson, Kraft, or Andrews rest of season? I think that's a tough one to answer. Considering I don't know the overall value of Ferguson with Cooper Rush, he's going to be last in that overall conversation. And then between Kraft and Andrews, I'm going to prefer Andrews in that scenario. So I'll go Andrews, Kraft, Ferguson, half PPR, rest of season. That's the order. Thank you. Is Cole Kmet a drop? I mean, Caleb Williams doesn't do him any favors. And when I say favors, I mean he doesn't throw him the ball enough. So I'd venture to say that, yes, he is a droppable piece. Like in the last week he had literally 0 targets. The week prior, 1. But then the 3 weeks prior to that, 5, 4, and 3. So unless he is catching literally every reception, very limited utilization. When I look at his upcoming schedule, very few times in which I'm going to feel confident enough starting him against teams like Detroit, San Francisco, Minnesota, Detroit, Seattle. His fantasy playoff stretch is not pretty. So I'm not too interested in that scenario. Christian Miller says, just to clarify for this week, should I start Hopkins over Taysom Hill? Yes. I'm only concerned due to the matchup with the Chiefs or Hill would appear to get more looks for the Saints having so many injuries. Yeah, look, here's the thing. In the event in which it was a standard scoring league where you get 0 points per reception, I'd say sure. But considering, again, Taysom Hill has to compete for receptions with Juwan Jennings and Foster Moreau, very, very difficult to assume that he can immediately get all those. And then he also has to score a touchdown. Without a touchdown, he is not going to be as valuable as we would like. So with so many potential walls being ahead of him in comparison to DeAndre Hopkins being the clear and away number 2 option of that offense and looking very good in doing so, I just rather play with the player that I know is going to get a higher volume of overall looks within the receiving game. And in a PPR, should be the more like baseline floor ready player in comparison to Taysom Hill, who, again, in the event of a touchdown, would easily outscore him. But again, it's a toss-up. Is he going to score that touchdown, or is Kamara going to do that? That is the very difficult thing to be able to kind of predict. As of right now, I'd rather just play D-Hop in that situation. Billy Welsh says, in a 6-3 team, 12-team full PPR, should I trade Saquon, McLaurin, Montgomery for Kyron, Walker, Hill, and Bigsby? Okay, wait. So you'd be sending away Saquon, McLaurin, and Montgomery for Kyron, Walker, Hill, and Bigsby. Bigsby, I think, is fodder. So this is a 3 for 3. Which side would I rather have in the long term? Wow, this is a very interesting question. Let me see your team. It says rosters Hurts, Chase, Debo, Bowers, Ladd, and Spears. In the long term, if you had told me outright, Billy, if you had said, Andrew, Tyreek Hill is going to be a 20-point player rest of season every game, then I would say that is the winning side. But considering I don't know if he's capable of getting there with his current injury and all this overall bullshit, I think I just keep what you have with Saquon. And I don't even take the risk. Again, in the event that Tyreek Hill gets back to scoring 20 points a week, which again, he very easily could. If anybody could, it's probably him. If he could do so on a consistent basis rest of season, and he's not going to have these lackluster performances like he has produced in the last 2 games against Arizona and against Buffalo, then he would be the preferred side because that side is objectively stronger in a full PPR rest season. But considering I'm not 100% certain on it, I think I just hold. And I just keep the players that I currently have on roster in this circumstance. Alexander says, is it safe to say Mason is a drop? I mean, it depends. If you have Christian McCaffrey on roster, you can hold on to him for another week. Let's see what their overall usage looks like. But in the long term, I would say yes, eventually he's a drop. I mean, in my leagues, I've dropped him already. I went after and I picked up other players because again, I do not trust that he can sustain the hits. Alex says, should I trade Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt for Jamar Chase? Yeah, I'd be willing to make that move. Absolutely. Certified says, does Andrew have full PPR rankings up? Yeah, the only place I have full PPR rankings in which you can access them is either Patreon or via Underdog. That right there. So via Patreon, I post rankings every Thursday and Sunday morning. So those rankings are available at that time. So if you want rankings for tomorrow morning, full PPR, running back, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, kicker, defense, flex, that's where you can find it. Otherwise, if you sign up using code Andrew via Underdog, every Sunday morning for the remainder of the season, you will be sent an email from my email directly to yours, which includes all those rankings. So pretty much every single Patreon ranking that I send out, I just send those out to everybody who signs up via Underdog every Sunday for the remainder of the season. All you have to do is sign up using code Andrew and make a first-time deposit minimum of $10. So one first-time deposit minimum of 10, and you get the rankings for the remainder of the season up until week 18, just like it says right there. But otherwise, the videos on the channel are just primarily half PPR because I want to meet everyone in the middle, whether they do play in a standard or full PPR. So I choose half. Is Brandon Aubrey still a top 3 kicker rest season? No. I don't believe so. Let's see here. Rowett says, Andrew, should I sell Diop high before he puts up a dud game? If you would like to, sure. Again, every player is tradable. It's just a matter of what are you going to get in exchange for it. That's the only question in mind. All right, what are you sending me? Tyreek Hill. Freddie, I'm looking at your question. I'm assuming you're listening, Freddie. Freddie, in the event... So this is what I'm thinking, Freddie. I don't know what you have on the bench for this team, but I'm probably going up and I'm picking up Jameson Williams and putting it on your bench. And if by Sunday night tomorrow we don't have an indicator as to whether or not Tyreek's going to play, if we don't get any sort of qualifying information that gives us confidence, I just play Jameson Williams there over him because I don't want to go into Monday night and get screwed. Especially with your record and the stud team you have, I don't think you have to risk it. Waddle or Quentin Johnston? I'd rather have Waddle. Angel says, do I drop my girlfriend since she's intervening in fantasy football time? No. No. That's not the way to go, brother. Chat, start London or Lamb? Depends. I think if London is active, he's probably the play. But that's if he's active, right? If he's not active, the answer is made for you, right? The decision is made for you in that event. Football says, Vikings or Cardinals defense rest season? Football, I answered this question. I'm not even joking 10 minutes ago. I said Vikings for sure. Rest of season. Rowett says, trade him for CD then? I don't know if I feel like CD still going to eat. Yeah, go for it. If you can move DeAndre Hopkins for CD, then yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with that. I think their value is very much so comparable rest of the way in the long term. All right, really quickly, like we do every single Saturday, what I wanted to go ahead and do is I want to head on over to Underdog and hear what kind of suggestions y'all have for me going into this weekend. Usually you guys as a chat, you're pretty good. There's been many of times you guys have made me money. Besides the reciprocation of me trying to help you guys win money, you guys do a pretty good job for me. So is there anything that you guys have seen over the course of this week that seems egregiously low? Now, again, there are players like Devon Achane that I am waiting to see what his reception count is at. Once receptions is updated on this list, which again, it is not. Once receptions is here, they have targets. But once receptions is here, I am smashing the higher on what, 3.5, 4.5, doesn't matter. Whatever the number is, I'm taking the higher on that. It's not even close. But I'm not NBA. What am I doing? NFL. Come on. It's lagging. Oh my God. I break the system. Let's refresh the page. Somebody in the chat says, trade Hawkinson for Pacheco. I'm 6-3. Yes, I would. Especially if you have another solidified tight end on roster, you're good to go. Kazi says, Andrew, rank Parker Washington, Michael Wilson, or Sterling Shepard this week. Yeah, the way that I would currently have it ranked is in the following order. It would go Parker Washington 1, Sterling Shepard 2, Michael Wilson 3. Thank you. Trade Hawkins. Okay, so we took care of that one. Bathroom Cake says, I tried making that Lamb for Debo trade, and he wants Pollard. I still have Achane, Bucky, and Dobbins. Should I take it? So are you getting... It's just a 1-for-1, correct? Bathroom Cake, just to clarify, this is a 1-for-1? It would be Pollard for Debo, correct? Once you can confirm that, then I'll be able to share my information. No, you're good, football. You're good. You're usually around the chat a while, but yeah, I assumed you either got hit with a ad or you got you stepped away. Somebody had asked earlier, Taysom Hill or Eckler in a full PPR flex? Schnabel, I'm going to play Eckler there, my man. Pretty comfortably. Jonnu or Taysom Hill this week? I'd rather play Taysom Hill. Speaking of Taysom Hill, let's see what kind of lines he has in terms of his overall stuff here on Underdog. So let's see here. What is his receiving yards at? 18.5. Can I lower his receptions? I mean, doesn't that seem like a pretty solid play? Am I crazy? No Olave. No Shaheed. No Bub Means. I mean, am I... Hold on, wait. What is Kamara's receptions at? Hold up. While we're on the topic. Kamara's receptions, 5.5. Yo, okay. All right. What are we joking here? Hold up. Alvin Kamara stats. Let me see what he did last week. I think, didn't he have like 9 targets last week? Yeah, he had 9 targets, 6 catches. He's had 5 or more receptions for 6 consecutive games. Okay. So 3.5 is a pretty easy. Is the multiplier terrible? Yes, but we could theoretically take this and just roll with it. A little bit better of an overall multiplier. That seems like a pretty good overall play. Now, as for Taysom, again, 1.5, where did it go? They took it away. I shit you not. They literally took it away. Are they watching? There's no shot. You guys, as my witness, we are watching this. They took away his receptions as soon as I was going to play it. I shit you not. Ray Davis higher than 2.5 receiving yards. Interesting, Peter. Okay, hold up. Wait a minute. Let me see how many routes Ray Davis runs in a game on average. Once I can kind of reference that, I'll be able to tell what I want to do here. So if I go to my PFF account here, let's go look up Ray Davis. So Ray Davis, in terms of receiving, so last week he ran 3 routes and he was targeted twice, okay? In the week prior, only ran 5 routes. The week prior, only ran 7 routes. So he doesn't run enough routes for me to constitute that as a guarantee because he has ran a total of, let's see here, in the last 3 games, he's ran 15 routes. He's been targeted 3 times. So what is that? 3 divided by 15 is 1/5, so like 20%. Yeah, 20%. So he's targeted 20% of the times he runs a route, but who's to say he doesn't end up for a negative yardage? That's the only concern. Kamara had a 6 reception damn near every game. Yeah, that's why this seems like it's a pretty good number, right? Especially with all these missing pieces. That seems like a pretty good approach. JMO or Jennings in a half PPR? I'm probably going with Jennings there. Chico, 410. Length Dog says, I like Cousins higher than 229.5 passing yards. I like that as well. Let's see what we got here. I'll probably lower the number. Let me see what Kirk Cousins has done in the last couple weeks here in terms of overall passing yardage. But yeah, you are not incorrect at all in terms of the idea that he could probably light it up against this defense. So this season, his lowest passing yardage is 222. Let's see. If I go and I change this number, I can move it variably like to his like lowest potential, which 219 I think is relatively safe. So 220 pretty much is going to be the yardage that we're looking for. I think that's relatively safe in that scenario as well. Am I taking a lower multi on it? Yeah, but I'm also avoiding a little bit of risk in that situation. Let's see here. Dude, he's playing Indy? What does that have to do with anything? my question is, look, it's not a matter of who you're playing, Peter, in that circumstance. It's a matter of, does he run enough routes? If he doesn't run enough routes, who's to say that he, if he even gets the opportunity? Look at Downs receiving. Downs was in my play for yesterday when I was suggesting receptions, like I already have Downs on a 4.5 from yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. Like if I go here really quickly, let me see if it's still up. It might not be still up. No, it's not still up. Give me a second. I got a full background here that is cooked. Let me see if I can go find it real quick, everybody. In the meanwhile, never mind. I'm not going to be able to find it. Never mind. We are in the abyss at this moment. Okay. I am lost in the abyss. My background was not available. Like 4.5 is easy. I think if anything, 5.5 is probably just the easier take in this scenario, just to get the higher multi. But in terms of like yardage alone, 64.5, I don't mind that. 59.5, I don't mind that. But honestly, I just want the reception count. I don't want to have to deal with the yards after the catch, especially considering his ADOT is not great. All right, let me get back to answering some of these questions really quickly before I continue on putting together this play here. So we had a question sent in from iShine101, who says, in a half PPR, I need a flex out of Trey McBride, Amari Cooper, Pollard, or Javonte Williams. Okay. So out of those available options, Javonte Williams is not starting for me. So if it's between McBride and Amari Cooper, in the event that Amari Cooper is active tomorrow, I would play him. Otherwise, again, if he's inactive, then McBride is your pivot option. Wait, hold up. McBride, oh, you have Pollard as well. My apologies. Pollard is the auto start. Never mind. Scratch that. I didn't even see Pollard mentioned. So Pollard would be the auto start. Good to go. My tight end one is Otten and my RB2s are, yeah, okay. So Pollard will be your flex there, iShine. Thank you. Terry R sends in a question. Says, Ridley at Los Angeles or Mooney versus New Orleans? I'd rather play Mooney. Speaking of Mooney, what does his numbers look like? I mean, it seems like, dude, we could really lower that number to a pretty good margin there. Patrick Raymond sends in a question. Says, in a 12-team half PPR, I got offered Kyron, Kelsey for Brian Robinson, HN, and Ingram. Receivers would be DK, Mike Evans, Debo. Running backs would be JT, Kyron, and Eckler. Okay, so you got offered Kyron and Kelsey for Brian Robinson, HN, and Eckler, and Ingram. Here's the thing. HN, I believe, is more valuable than Kyron rest of the way. Now, the question is, do I rather have Brian Robinson and Ingram or Kelsey? Looking at the rest of your team as a whole, you have Jonathan Taylor, you have Eckler. This one is not so easy. If I was you, I'd probably keep the HN side of this deal, Patrick. Because Eckler, I don't think, is a standalone startable option unless Brian Robinson's out. And Brian Robinson will eventually return and be a solid option rest of the way. Ingram, I know he hasn't done much yet, but in the absence of Kirk Cousins, in the absence of Christian Kirk, he is a machine in terms of targets. If there is a play for Evan Ingram this weekend in terms of targets here, I would legitimately take it. This is a very, very, very conceivable number. What's his receptions at? 4.5. iShine says, Taysom Hill or Hunter Henry in a full PPR? I'd rather have Hunter Henry. Thank you. Grant Lathern sends in a question. Says, inbox full offer, okay. PPR, give Wilson, Najee, Ridley. I receive Brees and Downs. No. I keep the Wilson, Najee, Ridley rest of the way. My other wide receivers are JJ, Dell, Reed, Leggett. Okay, I understand that. My running backs are JT, Tracy, Hubbard. At this point, it's pretty much a trade for no. I think I'd rather keep what you have at the moment. Jonathan sends in a question, says, putting your hidden gems to the test, full PPR, Hurts, Dobbins, Tracy, Smitty, Kelsey. Who do I flex, J Moore or Jennings? I'd rather flex Juwan Jennings at the moment. They're both going to be probably back-to-back ranked next to one another. But yeah, I'd rather have Jennings at the moment. Jordy Peasy says Atlanta defense, Detroit defense, or Giants defense. As of right now, it would be... Let me see where I have them ranked. So as of right now, the where I currently have it would be Giants 1, Detroit 2, Atlanta 3. Thank you. This seems like a pretty good overall slip, to be honest. Let me see what the chat says in terms of other overall plays. Kittle higher than 4.5 receptions. Okay, we'll throw that in there. If I can get it at 3.5, I'd probably rather have that, just in case. I can, so I will. All right, this is not bad. At this point, Ingram's probably the sketchiest play of the bunch, which is probably why I'll just remove him. And I'll just go after this. Yeah, this is probably what I'll just do for now. If I look at Ingram, if his receptions were at 4.5 is not bad at all. Yeah, honestly, I'd probably just take the... is it receptions or is it targets? Decisions we must make. I think it's just receptions there. This is what I'll do. This is the 5 legs that I want. Receptions, and then a passing yard number there. Do I have any profit boosts? Nope. That's fine. I'll take $10 on this. 10 for 56. I don't have an issue with that at all. All right, so that's the slip for everybody who's wondering. I'll leave it on the screen for a couple seconds. How bad is it that I'm stuck playing the Broncos defense versus the Chiefs? Yeah, it's definitely not great, Michael Hart. It's definitely not great. Definitely not great. J47 says James Conner or Nico Collins. If Nico Collins is active tomorrow, which we're assuming he's going to be, I think it's probably the play. I have Jennings and Christian McCaffrey. My opponent has Purdy. Do I start Jennings over Hill? Do you have a pivoting option for Hill? Like, again, the example that I was giving earlier, like if you have, this is the hypothetical situation. Let's say, for example, I have Tyreek Hill, I have Josh Downs, I have Darnell Mooney. Okay. And I can only play, and I'm trying to play all three of them. What I would do is I'd play Darnell Mooney and Josh Downs as my starting wide receivers. And then I put Tyreek Hill in my flex. And in the event that on Monday night, why did I get something stuck in my throat? In the event on Monday night, he is not available to play, I'm pivoting to Jonnu Smith, if in fact I can pick him up and play him. Or DeMarcus Robinson, or Raheem Mostert. But only in the event of those situations am I willing to do that. Otherwise, you have to play the alternative option because it may be too risky. Removed catches from Evan Ingram. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. Again, I'm just going with what I feel is confident. Again, these are not the greatest overall plays. My favorite plays, like I was saying earlier, were in the video on Hidden Gems 2 days ago. No, yesterday. What am I saying 2 days ago? Literally yesterday. So my favorite plays of the week is that Kamara number is pretty solid. But Josh Downs receptions, Malik Neighbors receptions, Kelsey receptions, those seem like they're the strongest of the bunch. And then, of course, 2 touchdowns passing for Purdy, 2 touchdowns passing for Sam Darnold, and an anytime rushing touchdown for Kyron Williams. That was my suggestions on yesterday's episode. Jordy, we took care of that. Jonathan Lee says, Gibbs, Chase Brown for Puka, Swift, Pacheco. It depends on how badly you need that wide receiver, Jonathan. If you really need that wide receiver, then sure. But otherwise, at the moment, yeah, in the long term, it'll probably help you. So yeah, if you need the wide receiver, then sure, we'll take it. They removed catches from Ingram. Oh, wait, what? Wait. wait. Did they actually remove it? Hold up. Wait a minute. Everybody stay calm. Hold up. Hold up. Did they actually remove? No, it's still here. See, it's right here. Still here. You can take 4.5. I think Taysom Hill's reception is probably back as well, if I had to guess. They just remove him for like a half second. You see? Still back. 1.5. Yeah. They're there. They're there. We're chilling. They did not remove it. Coast is clear. We're chilling. Everybody stay calm. We're staying calm. Stevenson or Dobbins in a PPR? I'd rather have Dobbins this week. Aaron says, do you start Dell, McConkey, or DJ Moore? I'd rather start Dell number 1 out of all 3 of those options, Aaron. The Hound says, trade Bijan for Jefferson. My other running back is Henry. I don't have an issue with that. As long as you have running back depth to be able to kind of fill in the absence of Bijan, then you're fine. I think the site just bugs out. Yeah, that's what it is, 100%. Stephen Drake sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR, assuming Nico is playing, who do I have to start between him, Debo? Okay, so if you have Debo, Nico, and Shakir, I'm playing Debo and Nico. That would be the 2 that I play this week. Now, as for your next question, Denver or Atlanta defense this week, I'd rather play Atlanta's defense. Thank you. They're watching? Yeah, they might be. You never know. Taysom or Fergie in a full PPR, I'd probably just confidently play Taysom there. Grant sends in a follow-up, says, Stroud with Nico back or Kyler Murray tomorrow? I'd rather play Stroud. Thank you. Fergie, okay, Jonathan says, in a full PPR, Flex 1, Jamison Williams, Jonathan Brooks, Mason with Christian McCaffrey owner, Adunze. Yeah, out of those available options, Jamison Williams is the play, Donovan. Kyle Sun says, in Jones or Kenneth Walker plus Reed for AJ Brown plus Alexander Madison? No. I'd rather just keep whatever side of Jones, Kenneth Walker, Reed. I'd keep all 3 of those. I'm not really too interested in going after Alexander Madison in this circumstance, especially considering they just fired their entire offensive coaching staff in Las Vegas. And on top of it, they're considering starting Desmond Ridder as their starting quarterback once they come back from the bye week. Even that being a consideration is embarrassing. So yeah, let's not have to deal with that. Easy3 says, please answer. Says JT and ETN for Jacobs and Tracy. Yeah, I'll take Jacobs and Tracy the rest of the season. That's cool with me. Again, under the assumption you can survive with Jacobs on a bye week this week, then sure. Because ETN is not worth anything anymore. It's done. His value has been sapped. Downs or BTJ in a PPR, I'd rather play Downs. Thank you. London or Neighbors? I'd rather play Neighbors. For sure, Neighbors. Yo, Andrew, please rank in a full PPR. Montgomery, Pollard, Chuba, Mooney, Downs. Thanks. Yeah. It's very much so a contingency factor. It depends on who's available. Like if London is not available, then Mooney is the number 1 by far and away. If Jonathan Brooks is not available, Chuba Hubbard is the number 1 by far and away, right? But again, it's very much so contingent on those situations. Let's say everyone's healthy. Let's say Jonathan Brooks is playing. Let's say London's playing. At that point, the way that I'd probably rank this group would go Downs 1, Montgomery 2, Mooney 3, Pollard 4, Chuba Hubbard 5. Probably something of that. Wilson or Stroud this week? Wilson or Stroud? Like as in Russell Wilson? No, I'd rather play Stroud. Going to be real good TV next year when the Raiders draft Shadur. I mean, they probably will, right? They're trying to get the number 1 spot. Nico playing Dell, Downs, or Jennings. If it's a full PPR, I'll probably just play Downs there. Otherwise, in half PPR standard, I'll play Dell. iShine says, do you think Tyreek Hill is playing Monday? I think he will. But again, you have to be safe with it. You can't really assume because there have been multiple times this season where I've said publicly, I think this guy's going to play, and then he doesn't play. So, again, very difficult. This man literally skips over my comments. Honestly, I don't. But if you want me to, I can. Nick Walker says, in a rest of season conversation, drop Ferguson or Waddle and pick up Taysom. I don't mind the idea of dropping Ferguson for Taysom, assuming it's not a full PPR. Because Taysom's great this week because of matchup. I don't know how consistent he will be in different matchup circumstances in which they're taking on defenses that can stop the run. I started in normal, the switched to all caps. I don't know what you're talking about, brother, but okay. Let's see if I can find your question. It says full caps. I'm in a full PPR. I'm undefeated. Okay, so then you don't need my help. Started Deontay Johnson on Thursday versus Joe Burrow and Henry. That's rough. I'm starting Bijan, Hunt, London, and Dobbins in the flex. Do I swap with Marvin Harrison or Montgomery for anyone? Okay, so you're starting Bijan, Hunt, London, and Dobbins. The only thing that I would ever suggest potentially swapping is swapping out London for Montgomery in the event that London does not play. Otherwise, you're fine. Again, you're undefeated. I don't think you really need my help, do you? I think you don't. I think you know the right decisions. F Marquez 1983 says, I got Chase on 3 of my leagues, taking the week off. All right, have a good one. We'll see you on Monday. Otten or McBride, which one do y'all got? I prefer Otten this week for sure. Khalil Shakir or DJ Moore? Khalil Shakir for sure. Craig, thank you very much. Quincy Jones says, start kicker, Dicker, Boswell, Bass, or Moody? Moody number 1, Bass 2, Boswell 3, Dicker 4. Chris says, do I trade D-Hop for Neighbors rest of season? Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. All right, guys. I think that's where we're going to pretty much call it. I appreciate y'all. Again, I'll be back tomorrow morning. As to which time I start tomorrow morning, that is still to be determined. I'm thinking 7 a.m. I don't know if I want to have a 4-hour live stream tomorrow because that thing will literally kill me slowly but surely. So I'll probably show up after the Sunday morning game between the... Yeah, I'll probably show up... I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I bite the bullet and I show up at 6 a.m. We'll see. I'm leaving it up to the future. Tomorrow morning, I will have my stream scheduled either at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. start time. As to which one it'll be, time will tell. I'll see how I'm feeling after 2 hours of sleep, or maybe not even sleeping. Typically on Sundays, I pull all-nighters, but we'll see. I appreciate y'all. Thank you very much. Again, if you guys want my rankings, you can check out Patreon, or of course, sign up using Underdog. You get those rankings sent to my, be sent to your email from my email to yours every Sunday morning rest of the season, or you can get the Patreon rankings every Thursday, Sunday, and unlimited questions answered. All those links and information down in the description. Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all. Horizon Files with the final question of the day says half PPR, Taysom, Henry, or Hawkinson in a half PPR scoring format. The way I currently have them ranked in the following order is Henry 1, Taysom Hill 2, and Hawkinson number 3. Thank you. All right, guys. I'm queuing the wonderful double helix. Have a great rest of your Saturday. And until tomorrow morning, I'll see you guys. Peace. Okay, I shine. Let's see what you have here. It says, just in case Tyreek Hill don't play, I can drop Taysom Hill for Demarcus Robinson or OBJ. Okay, cool. So then I would pick up Demarcus Robinson in that case if you're not playing Taysom Hill. Thank you.